Yeah, so it was a time issue. He said that because he runs a daily room first, but he's on West Coast side, and then he has a daily meeting with his team from Kenya, and that's his 10 a.m. his time, which is now. So if we do it at this time, he's not going to be able to. But if we do it a little bit later, if that's possible, then he'd be able to join us.
Yeah. So, and just welcome to everybody that's on our broadcast right now. We are live. So Patty was just updating us with some exciting news about a guest coming up next month from Kenya. So normally this show is scheduled to be the second Tuesday of every month. It follows at 11 o'clock to 12. So is that going to work for him on the second Tuesday of each month?
11 from 12. I know he I'm trying to think. I know his room his room is from 7 to 9 Pacific time, so that should work.
Yeah, 7 to 9. Yeah, that's from 10 to 11 Eastern time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it should work. I know it's a tight window, but that should work. Yep.
This is my fourth show today, and I had two big ones this morning, and oh my gosh. And Dr. Pauline is with us today also. Patty coming in from New York. Dr. Pauline, how was your trip to England?
It was absolutely fabulous. And apart from learning so much about COVID tests and quarantine and the controls that puts on your life, I managed to get there for a heat wave, which is, quite extraordinary in England. And so we had a heat wave, and then it rained and went grey. But I was with my family. It was a very family holiday, and it was very wonderful to catch up. And I actually taught my granddaughter, age 11, how to use a sewing machine. Which was great fun. She eventually said, "I don't need you anymore, Grandma. I can do this." So unless it goes wrong, and then she needed me.
Yeah.
That touches my heart. Can I just share? Because my grandmother was a seamstress as a living, and she showed me how to sew, and I actually sewed my honeymoon a couple of outfits. I'm very proud of it.
That's wonderful. Now, another thing that was interesting is, because I've been sewing all my life, making clothes, the machine that I was using, I bought 44 years ago when my son was born. And it's still working. It's clattering a bit, but it's working. So that was a miracle as well. And when
it stops working, you could give it. Oh no, you only do presidential, right, Marty? I said Marty's the museum guy.
Yeah, sure.
And I managed to recover some of the skills that I remember, like invisible zips. So my granddaughter was very impressed, and then she took over. So it was a wonderful trip. And apart from the fact that there are no direct flights from Las Vegas to England, which is ridiculous, so I had to go via Chicago and Caroline coming back. Charlotte, I was in North Carolina actually.
Oh, you were right here in Charlotte with all the white rocking chairs.
Oh yes, and
our piano.
Yeah, the white rocking chairs. I saw them.
Yeah, we're very famous. In fact, our airport is right now undergoing another $760 million expansion. So very famous for our white rocking chairs, hundreds of them in the airport. Well, I was just going to bring up, because I visually like for people to see and understand what we're talking about. I was just going to visually bring up, because you said you were in Brighton. So let me shrink us down. And can you see that map of England?
Yes.
So now you're just below London. So I'm going to shrink this down for people. You can see Brighton down here.
Brighton, yeah. And down on there, the Brighton Pier and Brighton Rock. It's a beautiful coastline. And I actually swam in the sea, which is pretty good for England.
Oh, yeah. So we'll just zoom in on Brighton here.
Yes. It's a very famous seaside town.
I see. Yeah. Is it just as big as Eastbourne, or is it a little bit smaller?
Yes, I think so. It may be bigger, because it's now Brighton and Hove. It's become one place, and it's a very hip place. It's very trendy. It's very gay. It's very creative. It's very artistic. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Extremely diverse.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice to hear too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Very, very diverse.
Especially considering the subject matter of this month's meeting.
Yes.
So when you say diverse, you're talking about lots of like what, Indians and Black people
yes,
and Europeans.
It's culturally diverse, but it's much more famous for its sexual orientation diversity. So it's it's the LGBT center of UK. You know, everybody is they're very eccentric as well. And that's a famous new thing. The London, it's called the I360. That tire, it's a ride, but it's very old place as well.
Sure. I see this old clock, and a lot of this sculpture here is Moorish in nature.
It is, and now that is not as old as it looks. It was, but it is, you know, a couple of centuries ago. But it was built as to honor the king of whatever it was. But it's a tourist attraction. You go inside there, it's fabulous.
Yeah, I see the aquarium here and stuff.
Yeah. And the latest attraction is that bubble thing you see. It's a ride, so you get in the bubble and you can go up. It's called the I360.
Yeah, I saw that here. There was a picture here showing it. It looks like it's down there on the beach.
That's right. And it on a good day, you can see the French coast.
Oh, so wow.
That bubble goes up. It takes about 25 minutes, I think, to go all the way up to the top. It holds about 200 people. And obviously you need a clear day for a good view, which is something the English weather doesn't always give you. But it's a ride. Instead of a millennial wheel, it's a ride up into the sky.
Well, amazing. The reason I mentioned that I was a bit surprised, what is all this famous palace? Is this Indian architecture?
Yes, it is a famous palace. But what I'm saying is it's not as old as it looks. It was built, it's what you might call a folly, in the sense of it was built as a palace for some king. So we'd have to look into it, but it's a fabulous place. It's one of the main tourist attractions.
Oh, this is the Brighton Museum and Art Gallery.
Yeah, and it houses all these very Moorish artifacts and things like that. But it was probably built in Victorian times, I'm guessing. And that piece that you saw in the sea is one of the original piers that was burnt down. This is a famous. There's the other pier which is still going, but this was a pier. This was the West Pier or the East Pier, I can't remember, but it burnt down in the 1980s or 90s. But it's never been taken out because it's too dangerous. Because of the structure under the water, they don't want to take it out because it would be a huge job, and it's now become a landmark. Yeah,
it says it's called the West Pier, Brighton West Pier.
Yeah, because the other pier is going strong, and it's got all the
there's one more.
Yeah, the typical attractions on it. But this is a very dangerous part to swim in, so they don't let you swim in that area. There's the I360.
Oh, yeah. There it is again.
Yeah, and it's actually built by British Airways, so it's called the British Airways I360 flight.
Okay, and that's the Royal Pavilion, built in an Asian-style palace for King George IV.
That's right.
Restored rooms, gardens, and tours. So we figured out who that king is.
Yes, that's right. And it's fabulous, and it's a fabulous attraction. I've been in there many times with my family, and the artifacts in there are just superb. And the Brighton Pier is a classic pier, typical of Great Britain, I'm sure of many places in the world, but the pier has all the rides on it that you'd want, and fabulous ice cream. So you have to have an ice cream in a cone with a chocolate wafer in it. That's
okay. Very nice indeed. Any
The other
famous?
thing, of course, as a chef, you know that the famous meal of the day is fish and chips. And there was no one in the world better than Brighton for fish and chips.
And do they do the mushy peas down
yes.
here? Oh, they do. And of
They
course,
do.
malt vinegar.
I don't like that.
You don't like the malt vinegar?
I don't like vinegar. It's one of the things
Oh,
I don't like. But you know that's just my quirk. But yeah, the fish and chips in England are just superb.
absolutely. Well, coming back to you and getting back to since we have nicknamed you Fanny Kemble now, you are our Fanny Kemble representative from England. Just for folks tuning in again, this is an exhibit that we're working on for 2022. We have not lost our mind. And this is called Othello is Disgusting. It centers around John Quincy Adams and what he stated at dinners in Boston, and the very famous English star, Fanny Kemble, who came and wrote in her book about all the things the president had to say very negatively. I appreciate also this week, Patty invited me to speak on an almost 10,000 member show on Clubhouse. Patty, do you want to tell us a little bit about Clubhouse and that particular show with Delano Johnson?
Yes, he says it Delano, and Delano Johnson's the CEO of the House of Creativity, and it's a club in the Clubhouse, but now there's also a website that has more information, membership levels, because even though Clubhouse is a free platform, the club has so much to offer, and they do like affiliate stuff, so there are different memberships, and I'm a proud affiliate, you know, and you see I'm always there, and it was such an honor to hear you talk about this, because this is so important. That was such a great place to be able to share about it. In fact, that's where I had met Simon, who was going to be our guest tonight. He was the first one who did Africa Day 24-hour room on Clubhouse, the founder of Madaraka Festival. He's done the Madaraka documentary, and he also runs the African Daily Proverbs on Clubhouse under the Africa Fathers in America Club, and just amazing people, a great club. And Monique Lisa is the COO, which is his, you know, a significant other. And yeah, I'm just honored that when I saw you there, I was so excited.
Absolutely. I've been in there many days. I usually listen to it while I'm taking a shower because it can play out loud. And we may have lost Dr. Pauline for a second, but I think she'll be back in here. She's popping back in. We lost you for a second, Dr. Pauline.
The screen was going all crazy on my. It's fine now.
Well, the one thing I had promised for this month was that we were going to take a look at who the real person is for inspiration, the Black gentleman in the court, and this is going to bring us from Italy back over to the United Kingdom, and we're going to activate Dr. Pauline again. So we've already, you know, put a lot of pressure on her by telling her that she was, you know, our official Fanny Kemble
Yes.
channeling. She's channeling Fanny Kemble.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and I think an English lady might understand another English lady better than some guy like me. So it seems to make a lot of sense from 1833. Listening to John Quincy, the president, speak out loud. But then I did also promise that this month, moving into this month, we were going to start to take a look at who Othello is and who the real inspiration is in the English court, and where suddenly Shakespeare gets this idea out of the middle of nowhere. I'm going to write a whole book about this, or make a play or so. We call this one of our aha moments. So are we allowed to have a drum roll, Patty, for one of our aha moments?
Yes, let's go.
Okay. Okay. So now just to back up, Othello is actually in the play, when we're watching the play today, and we bring up things like for the exhibit, should there be something written about this? And for the plays, when they're put on in school, should somebody get up and speak about this beforehand and what we're actually showing the world? And so Othello is actually, he's a Moorish prince, which is got him living in Venice. Okay. And he's an ambassador of the Moors. And after a time in Venice, Othello is appointed as a general in the Italian army, in the Venetian army. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again to kind of unwind just that statement for 1 second. And I'm going to run over yonder with a map again, because I love maps, to be able to actually see where and what we're talking about. We're going to leave London and head down here to Venice. Up here in the tippy top right region of the boot. So this is where the play is set in Venice.
Yeah.
And I think everybody knows about Venice at least a little bit. And so one thing Rania just built for us by hand, I'm going to hopefully have her showcase it in today's show. But
Yeah.
she just built St. Mark's Basilica, and she built a gondola in Venice for the exhibit. And I know that we had identified from 2 months ago, Dr. Joy Nicole said we should really have a heart in the exhibit.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of her things that she was saying was love, love, love. And I have actually her quote. If I stop sharing 1 second, it was love, love, love.
Yeah.
And she also had a quote of love absolutely.
Unconditional love.
Yep. So let me run back over there. But before I do, I would like to turn that love thing over to you, Dr. Joy Nicole, or I'm sorry, Dr. Pauline. Will you talk with us a little bit more about this? Because you do this so well about accepting each other. And really, this is a lot of what I mentioned on Clubhouse, blacks and whites together, and the black man putting his hands on the white woman, and the First Lady of the United States saying how revulsed and disgusted she was to see it on stage. And so over to you, Dr. Pauline.
Well, thank you, Marty. And it's so good to meet you, Patty. It's all about value creation. It's one of my theories is that we create value by what we do, and it's all energy. So, you know, when they were watching this show, they weren't really listening to the story. They were getting distracted by this issue whether, you know, he was black and she was white. That actually wasn't what the story was about. And I think we miss so much when we get stuck in our head and we don't stay with our love. So love comes from our heart. It emanates out through our energy sphere. And one of the things I talk to people about is, are you an energy angel or are you an energy vampire? So that kind of commentary is very energy vampire. It's taken away from the moment for whatever the intention Shakespeare had in writing this story. And you've got to remember that Shakespeare was, in a way, the journalist of the day. He was making headlines. And it's one of the things I was thinking about recently is that headlines are what grab us, but the headlines are not necessarily the facts or the truth. So, you know, even your headline for this show is one that grabs attention and it makes people think.
That's
and if we don't have a conversation, what I call a magical conversation, we can go off very quickly. People will say, oh, I don't know what he's doing. I'm not going to be here. Whereas actually a headline is always done to intrigue. And we know from our news and journalists, or even writing books or branding, people are looking for a headline. I'll give you a quick example. I remember I was doing a webinar, an actual show in England, and it was about men and women and how we get on. And the host said, could you change the subject? So it said, is sex valuable at work? So it was a headline. It was a headline to attract people in, but it wasn't what it was about. It was about how do we enjoy a loving relationship. So in fact, you know, what we're about is understanding the facts and exploring the feelings, and the feelings come from our heart. So what Dr. Joy and Nicole said was, love is the only thing, but everybody has a different version of love. So a magical conversation is what we're having, is a space of no judgment. So it's a space of no judgment. But in that point where the president's wife said what she said, or he said it, there was a judgment. And it created a headline, which has caused lots and lots of ripples. And what we actually want to look at is, how can we have unconditional love for each other, whoever we are, whatever color, whatever ethnicity, whatever sexual orientation, whatever generation. It's very easy for people to be judgmental and then prejudiced. Actually, it's easier to give unconditional love, but for some reason we have become very tormented about fear and hate. So I think we have to return to understanding what was happening in the show at the time. What was the play about? And it's interesting that you say Othello was a Moorish prince. Is that right? And
yes.
We were just looking at Brighton, where there's that Moorish temple building. I do believe there's synchronicity in life about what we're doing and how we understand it. And I think the main thing is everybody looks from their own lens. What they don't do is sit and explore it and listen to each other and say, what does that look like to you? What was that about? Is it good? Is it not good? Whatever it is, it's not good. It's not right or wrong. It's actually saying, let's have a conversation about it. And there's another synchronicity in here I just want to share, is that I'm half Maltese, so I have a lot of Moorish background in my...
You sure do.
My history.
Yeah, you sure do. If you're from Malta, they're from like the Iberian Peninsula, Malta, and Sicily. And
yeah, so my original name was Agius, Agius, Pauline Agius. We should say Agius, but I think there's so much in history that we are becoming argumentative about, whereas we should look at history and say, let's have a magical conversation about it. Where's the love in this situation? What was the message? What was Shakespeare aiming to get over to us by creating all of his plays? And so I think the subject matter, the headline is very good, Marty. It's now getting to a place of unconditional love about what are the characters, who are they, and how can we create a world which is filled with understanding that differences are beautiful, they're not difficulties.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so today, as was promised, we are going to reveal who the person is that's in the Shakespearean court of the Queen. And before we do that, Patty, any final comments before we release this?
I have a comment on the love theme, because like we all know, that's a global emotion. Like it's a universal language. Love is love, and it's very easy to feel it because it's a good feeling. I think everybody, even animals, babies, know a good feeling from a bad feeling, right? And when I think of that, I think of a culture. And when you think of culture, it brings to mind a petri dish, right? And we're in a petri dish, it reminds me of kind of like, nurture versus nature, and you need a little bit of both. But in a petri dish, when you have something that goes bad, then everything goes bad. But if you have a petri dish and you're nurturing it and giving it love, then it flourishes and grows beautifully, So I feel like, our world is just one big petri dish, and I don't want to see it go bad. I do want to see it flourish. And that's my 2 cents. Over to you, Marty.
No, I really like that. That's a good way of explaining it. And this petri dish was quite interesting because, this Black gentleman comes and, is probably for many people in England the first Black or Muslim that they've ever seen. And so we kind of sort of know where these Moors live. And let me bring up just a map for that for everybody. So we're going to leave Italy, and let me just show here on the screen. Seeing is believing, right? And everybody loves a good map. So let me do that.
And history lesson, and a good history lesson. I love this.
So we're gonna split out of Venice, where the play is set. It's set in Venice, where he is a Venetian general. And this is what Dr. Pauline was saying. So she's from the Isle of, a lot of her people are from the Isle of Malta.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and you see here, of course, the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah.
We don't want to get Portugal in there. That's too far up. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit more and get some of these towns' names to come up, like Sevilla right here. And this was, for me, was a really interesting journey here up into Granada.
Yes.
And the Sierra Nevada mountains, which I always thought the Sierra Nevada was, out west in America. So this is all part of Andalusia. When I went here, I was stunned to see the Moorish stronghold here of the Moors at Alhambra. And this is where I bought a lot of weapons and brought them home because I was just so fascinated with Alhambra. And this is where the eventual surrender is, guys, with Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. And the Muslims are driven out. Somehow or another, we got back to Italy all of a sudden. Let me get back over here to Lower Spain. I'll make this a little bit smaller. So we're right here in Granada, I was saying, and this is where the final battle was. This is like 1 year before, this is 1491. And that's one of the things that you'll notice in a lot of the famous paintings here, when the Muslims, this is the big battle, surrender Europe and are beaten by the Christian forces of Ferdinand and Isabella. The big paintings that they sell all around here show the Muslim king handing over the keys to Europe.
Yeah.
And so also in the crowd, you'll often notice there's a guy standing in the back of the crowd of all those paintings. He has a black pillow on his head with tassels hanging down. That's actually Columbus.
Oh.
And this is part of the problem where Isabella is telling him, like, if I win this last battle, I'll finance your crazy trip to go against the church. I know you've already been in prison in England, and they told you to shut your mouth and to stop speaking out against the scientists with the church, and that the world is really round. I'll finance this 1, 2, maybe 3 ships at most. You could maybe have a couple of ships, and you can go prove that the world is really round.
That's
now help me to find Malta. It's
further over. It's almost below Italy.
Oh, okay. Oh gosh, no wonder. Yeah. So and Iberia is really, the Iberian Peninsula, is that really up here? Do you know?
I don't know, but Malta is very much straight down from Italy. So if you get the boot of Italy and then go down.
Yeah. Oh, there you are. There you are. Right
there. It's tiny. Okay. It's only 15 miles long.
I never complained. I never said I was a geography expert. I'm pretty good.
So it's only the main island is 11 miles long, and the other one is about 3 miles long. It's a tiny place, 500,000 people.
Right.
But of course, very strategic place in both the world wars, and prior to that, because of it's a stopping place to the north coast of Africa.
Right. So Malta, Sicily, and let me bring up, I just had some photos of Moors and what they look like here. Can everybody see those?
Yes.
So who were the Moors? Very famous. Their influence throughout Europe. Very famous indeed, the influence of Moors on Europe. It's a whole lot of study in there, guys. And here you can see in this article, I put it's hard to say his name. It's very long here, but hopefully you guys can read this. So let me see if I can't blow that up a little bit. For history's sake, this is from Slate. So if people want to know what the information is coming from, people used to do blackface. I don't think they're going to do that anymore when they would portray Othello in many shows. These are some of the more famous ones with James Earl Jones in 1981. But then later on in 2015, we had at the Metropolitan Opera, the show was done again, and Daniel Craig was Lago, and David Oyelowo played Othello at the Metropolitan Opera. Now, if we go down a little bit here, this was an American actor who portrayed Othello in 1878, John Edward McCullough. But what I found fascinating down here was that information I had put up in August of 1600, the ambassador of the King of Barbary, which is roughly modern-day Morocco, came to London as a guest of Queen Elizabeth for a 6-month residency in the court. And Dr. Katie Cisneros from the University of Minnesota said he was like a celebrity. And they probably had a small public parade, and many people had never seen a Muslim before, never seen a Moor, all the way up that far. And he had a lot of charisma and dashing looks. And here is actually a portrait. Looks like their thing is cracked right now, so we'll get to work on that. But we may want to actually have the portrait of the original person. And so they said that they know from the records of the Shakespearean company that they performed in the court while the ambassador. And here's his full name. So how about if I copy that and we put that out so that people can you guys see that? Abd el Ahwad bin Maswad bin Muhammad Anun.
Oh. Wow.
So Shakespeare likely began writing. What's that, Patty?
You said it perfectly.
Oh, okay. Well, if you say so. So let me do that over here. Let me put that out here. We should really do about what if we say the original?
Yeah, put it in the chat.
Othello in Queen Elizabeth's court. Wouldn't that be cool to have that portrait in the exhibit?
Oh, yes, it was.
I just find this stuff fascinating. The original, this is like unbelievable. Okay, now let me see if you can see that there.
Oh, good. Yes.
And I think, we need to have like a digital exhibit putting all this together with a separate page on the website, the pictures, the geography. So the original Othello in Queen Elizabeth's court. This is him.
So what we're saying, Marty, is this was the gentleman whose character Othello became. And Shakespeare was writing this in England, I'm assuming. He didn't go to Venice.
That's right. This guy was the inspiration. And they said Shakespeare likely began writing Othello the next year and performed it for the first time in 1604.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they also said that he definitely performed in front of the Moor. Shakespeare performed in front of him, and this particular ambassador, which is roughly today, Morocco, was essentially a superstar. And England's relationship to the Ottoman Empire and to the Moors was a very pressing issue at this period.
That's fascinating.
So for Shakespeare to cast a story about a Moor, is very interesting in itself. And his plots were mostly unoriginal and adapted So yeah, this has really been quite neat to see.
Well, it makes that reference, that Shakespeare was a journalist of the time. He was writing about what was current. And people don't look at that in this context. We got so used to what we see as journalism, but he was reporting on the times and creating stories, which is what his role was. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. Quite fascinating indeed. After this, they said, unfortunately for Shakespeare, in between Abd al-Mun's visit and Othello's premiere, Queen Elizabeth will pass away. King James has a much frostier relationship with the Ottomans than his predecessor did, and James essentially tried to roll back the diplomatic advances that Elizabeth had made. And Dr. Cisneros mentions he starts using "let's have a new crusade" language.
Well, there's an interesting reference then to gender dynamics. How a female leader was more progressive than the gentleman who came after her. That's fascinating. That King James was trying to reverse this because he was power crazed and didn't want to lose his power.
Exactly. So this was all very interesting for me to find all this out and to put a face, and a name with the project and who the real inspiration is for Othello and how he got there, was all super, super cool. And there's lots of people researching this, including in these big books for the National Endowment for the Humanities.
Yeah.
This stuff is not done.
I'm still stuck on the fact that I didn't realize that this wasn't it was a real story. I didn't even realize that. That I'm just really stuck on that right now.
Me neither.
That's really amazing. And it's so true. Like when you said he was a journalist of his times, you know what it brought to mind? Did you ever go to Disney World and you go to the ball in Epcot and they start from the beginning and you see Socrates, and it just brought that all to mind.
Exactly. So I'm going to add this in if it's okay for you guys. It's almost time to wrap up for this month, but the fact that he was a guest in Queen Elizabeth's court is actually a real fact. Everybody knows about this, and Shakespeare was performing these plays, and this has just been really cool to find out who this guy actually is.
Yeah. I think what you've researched there, Marty, is absolutely fascinating, and I look forward to finding out even more. And it's really interesting, given our current world, where I'm not sure journalists really review the truth in the same way, but they're actually telling a story like this, and the fact that it was presented to this gentleman is stunning. It really is stunning. And I'm thrilled to know it. Like you say, Patty, it's all new stuff to me.
I just realized I said Socrates. I don't know why. I mean Shakespeare, because I'm thinking world.
Yeah, they're all interchangeable. Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, Shakespeare.
I think one of the things that's interesting is why do people critique history rather than listen and be enthralled with it and be curious? And whether we have a different perspective on it, that's okay. But to listen to each other and say, gosh, I didn't realize that was the case. I was imagining this gentleman sitting next to the Queen and the players playing it out and everybody applauding. And it gives it a whole different credence.
Yeah, exactly. Any parting comments, guys? And I'll catch you next month, and hopefully we'll grab Dr. Joy Nicole. Many nights, I'll just let you know, I think she is working very late. She's told me she'll just get home at like 6 a.m. She's going to sleep 3 hours and then try to jump on a show that she has to be on or something.
It'll be good to see her again. Where is she based now? Remind me.
She's actually very close here to me in Charlotte, and she's going to come over. Patty said she was going to come down for the debut of this exhibit in the spring, and Dr. Joy Nicole is going to come over. So
well, I think we should set a date to actually meet in person.
Yeah,
that would be good.
I have no problem doing it here and providing complimentary rooms. I know lodging is very expensive on people's minds and burning up a lot of money. So I was going to put Patty and her husband up for free.
Whoa!
Obviously.
I'm in. I'm coming either way, but I'll take you up on your offer.
And I've been to I've been to Charlotte Airport, so I've nearly got there.
Yes, you were like right here. Did you get any barbecue?
Well, I did think about that. I thought if I have any problems and this flight gets cancelled, I'm going to call you up and come see you.
That's right. That's right. And one time I called my wife, my very first visit from Charlotte. I was in the airport and they've got the white rocking chairs all out here. She was like, okay. And so I went and got some barbecue, and the guy ripped me off, and I told her like how annoyed I was. I was actually on the phone with her, and I was like, this guy gave me like one potato on my plate. And so I bit the potato, and I was like, holy heck, this is not a fried potato. It looked like a potato wedge. This is a fried pickle. Who fries a pickle with batter? Who does? But that's a very big thing down here, fried pickles. So when you guys come, we're going to take you out to the family barbecue restaurant here. Two-time barbecue champion for the United States, 2 years in a row. And we're probably going to order fried pickles when you sit down. And as part of your love connection and understanding one another, I was going to ask you, Dr. Pauline, I forgot, but was there any famous food there in Brighton that's very famous?
Well, I mean, Brighton rock is famous, because it's a stick of rock. It's extremely bad for your teeth, but it has Brighton rock all the way through. And I think, that's one of the most famous things. People buy Brighton rock. So I'm not sure there's anything else. It's specifically Brighton. Now,
our daughter loves to steal those. We keep them over there by the coffee machine for the guests. Is that what that is? That little stir stick with the rock candy?
Yeah. And in fact, you can order a Brighton rock with anything through it. So you could put Marty through it or Patty through it. So most of them have Brighton rock, but it's a technique. So you could have your name all the way through the rock. Wow.
So that is the most famous thing from Brighton for food. Okay. Yeah. It's almost like the Liège waffle in Belgium. I tell people, like, you may love Belgian waffles here in the United States, but when you go around to the towns in Belgium, they all have their own specific waffle.
Oh, yes.
And the Liège one I love is with the rock candy in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, over here in New York, we got good pizza.
I know.
and bagels.
Oh, bagels.
That's right. Well, you guys have a great week. I'll catch you next month.
Take care. Thank you.
Yep. Be good and keep doing good in the world.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Bye-bye.